This week on Full Circle Florida, beautiful bill or debt bomb? The House passing Trump's tax cut bill this week, but one Republican has a stark warning for the days ahead. Will Florida see a three-way race for governor? Our panel is here. Gas prices going up, going down, going back up. What's behind the swing? My conversation this week. And your voice on immigration, deportation, and what it means to be an American. All right, let's get right into it this week. Janel Irwin Taylor is the publisher of Southeast Politics. Dr. Susan MacManus is our voice of reason, our political analyst. Topic number one. Kentucky Congressman Thomas Massie broke ranks this week, calling President Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill a debt-ticking time bomb. And I just want to read part of what he said in part, quote, "I'd love to stand here and tell the American people we can cut your taxes, we can increase spending and everything going on and just be fine. We can't do that. I'm here to deliver a dose of reality." And he went on to say, this bill is a debt bomb ticking. So is President Trump writing checks for this country that he knows that we can't cash? What is the plan?
Well, the bottom line is that Congress is responsible for the appropriations and figuring out what to spend and how much, et cetera. Secondly, we have had a debt in this country every president since Bill Clinton was the last one to balance a budget. The problem is it's far easier to do tax cuts than it is to cut spending, because everybody, especially in the House, is up for re-election next year. They're thinking about, if I vote for this and it's got this tiny little piece and I'm going to be held around my neck. This is the problem. When you put everything in an up or down bill, you have problems.
Right, and Janelle, that's what people aren't really talking about, or the national media, is what if they don't pass this, because there's consequences for that too, if those tax cuts expire.
Yes, but I think right now all eyes are on the fact that Trump is really kind of putting a figurative noose around Republican lawmakers' necks to get this passed and to push it through. And the problem that they need to be considering long term is, like Susan said, it's easier to pass a tax cut than it is to cut spending. So when you're looking at the only reasonable option being cuts to things like Medicare and Medicaid and other healthcare provisions, those are things that Americans might not necessarily see right away, but they will eventually, and they're going to have to answer for that in the midterms. That's
what this Kentucky congressman, again a Republican, is saying. The bill dramatically increases deficits in the near term, but promises our government will be fiscally responsible 5 years from now. And he's essentially saying that is complete nonsense, that this is going to come back to bite us in a big way.
And in fact, if you look at the bill, having taught budgeting and finance for years, most of these things are actually projected out 5 or 10 years from now, all these parts of this budget practically.
And you also need to recognize that at some point, what's the conversation going to look like when you talk about who these tax cuts are most benefiting? Because we've heard enough, but it'll probably get louder, that these are going to benefit wealthy people far more than it's going to benefit anybody who is on a lower income side. And in fact, it might, in some cases, depending on how you slice it, actually be, a removal of resources to lower income people.
I want to talk about a different kind of cut, the Doge cut. Cities and states are fearing they're not ready for disasters. We've got hurricane season coming up in about a week here, and you saw this past week with the tornadoes. The National Weather Service say they didn't have enough people working the overnight shift. So why, of all things, did Musk target weather forecasters and emergency response? There's talk that FEMA isn't where it needs to be. It just seems to be not where.
There's got a lot of Floridians scratching their heads about that one, admittedly. And the argument is that FEMA is such a mess that they need to restructure it. But the undercover part of all this is that the thinking on the part of the feds is, let's pass a lot of this responsibility back to the states because they know more about the areas that are hard hit and whatever. But the bottom line is the states themselves would have to raise taxes, and they can't even cover the disasters that we have now.
We don't even have a state budget yet.
Right.
I mean, they got to figure that out in Tallahassee.
Well, and if you look at what happened that you mentioned in Kentucky, because of these Doge cuts, there wasn't an overnight meteorologists to get these warnings out in a timely fashion, and that cost lives. So that's something that is really going to have to be grappled with, especially here in Florida ahead of hurricane season, because people are still trying to recover from last year's chaotic season, and now we've got another one knocking on our front door.
And that's the reason that people here don't believe in FEMA, because it has not been helpful to a lot of people that are still suffering.
Okay, the Florida's governor's race starting to take shape early here. Could we see a three-way race here? Byron Donalds, the Trump favorite, Jason Pizzo, the independent, David Jolly is now the Democrat. Four?
You see a four.
Wait, who's
All
the
right,
fourth?
because you could have a Republican, surely, a Democrat, surely,
Right.
Jason Pizzo, NPA, surely. But what if John Morgan creates a third party, as he suggested, a minor party? You could have four.
If I'm David Jolly right now, he's a former Republican turned independent, now Democrat. If I'm him, I want John Morgan to jump into this race, because then you have John Morgan and Jason Pizzo jockeying for that center lane, and he kind of gets to just camp out. I'm not saying that a Democrat has any chance of winning in Florida in this climate with a 1.2 plus
He's got to
million
win some
advantage.
Republicans over, right?
Exactly.
That's what he's got to do. And being a former Republican, maybe he's got some ideas on how to do that.
I mean,
What's
but
ironic
imagine
is
you get dumped.
Yeah.
And then the person you dumped is like, hey, can we go out again? You're going to be like, no, absolutely not.
politics makes strange bedfellows, as they say. Is Ron DeSantis' political career over? You see all these articles that he's painted himself in a corner. Where does he go next?
I don't think his career is over for a lot of reasons. He's 54% of Floridians still like him a lot, compared to 51% for Trump. Yes, he probably won't run for the presidency, but he can do a lot in terms of helping Republicans all across the country, helping governors impose and draft policies like he favors. And I can see that if there's a vacancy in the Trump administration, him being appointed to a cabinet post.
The best
I got 10
place,
seconds,
the
sorry.
best place for Ron DeSantis to be is in a corner. He likes being on the ropes. That's where he's strongest, and his rapid responsibilities has proven itself successful. So there absolutely is a model there.
Still a popular governor. That's what bottom line is what
Yes.
you say. All right, hang with me. We'll come back to you next year on Full Circle Florida, how to navigate the gas price swing. Welcome back to Full Circle Florida. Gas prices are on a roller coaster lately, swinging from one week to the next, leaving drivers wondering when to fill up. To make sense of the unpredictable rise and fall, I spoke this week with Mark Jenkins from AAA. I remember a couple of weeks ago, below $3, and then 2 days later, it swung back up to like $3.19. What do you think is going on there?
I mean, just based on the trend that we're seeing, I mean, it looks like gas price cycling. So where retailers would typically kind of front load their higher price just to offset the cost of getting their gasoline in. And then as the week progresses, maybe lower the price to be competitive with the other retailers in the area. Also to kind of move through whatever is left in their coffers before the next delivery is made.
Can people time the wave? I mean, is there any way to know when the cycle is going to happen, where we dip below the 3? And is it a Tuesday? Like they always say, buy airline tickets on a Tuesday or whatever. You know, can you time it bi-weekly or bi-monthly, where you might be able to hit it right? Or if you see prices, you see the digital thing light up and it's below 3, you know, look at your tank, and maybe that's the time you go ahead and invest in some gas before it shoots back up above $3.
Yeah, there hasn't really been a hard, fast rule, but the trend has been for gas prices to kind of shoot up on a Monday afternoon, maybe even on a Tuesday, and then they kind of gradually go back down, and then by the weekend is typically when you'll see the lowest price.
My parents owned a gas station growing up, and I did all these jobs, and I had to work back then it was with the suction cup, where you would go outside and actually take the plastic thing off the sign and replace it.
Oh yeah,
with the new
yeah,
price.
sure. Yeah.
Right, and I had all these numbers on the ground that I had to figure out, you know, what I was told the price was. But back then we're talking about like 89 cents, 99 cents, 79 cents. I mean, we're never going to see those numbers again. But so I guess people have priced in the fact that these are kind of the numbers that you pay. It's sort of the price of doing business.
Well, I mean, you think back during the height of the pandemic when people were staying home, they weren't traveling, they weren't, you know, doing a lot of things. gas prices plummeted. Oil prices actually went negative one day because of expectations about demand. So you just never really know what the future is going to hold. But right now, I mean, based on current market conditions, based on, you know, the amount of oil providers, refineries in the area, things like that, like oil companies don't want to put out more oil, too much oil, because then they'll start losing money, right? So there's definitely this balancing act that they all have to play.
Control what we can control with so much that is still out of our control. Mark Jenkins, thank you so much for your insight. Appreciate it. Next on Full Circle Florida, your voice on immigration, deportation, and what it means to be an American. Welcome back to Full Circle Florida. As the U.S. Supreme Court considers the future of birthright citizenship, this week I hit the streets to capture your thoughts on the Trump administration's approach to deportations.
This next order relates to the definition of birthright citizenship.
Bit of a hot topic in the city this week, talking about immigration, a heavy topic as heavy as the Florida sun. Is the Trump administration being too aggressive when it comes to deportations? And what about birthright citizenship? I know, I picked a serious topic. It's time to get your voice. Talk to me. Here we go. How do you think the White House is handling deportations?
No comment.
No comment. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Hey, how you doing, guys? Does he work for the White House? I don't know. He said. Anyway, what are you gonna do? Immigration, deportation. A lot of people are being deported. Can we? No, she's okay. No one wants to talk to me. Some would say if you're here illegally, you should be deported. How do you think the Trump administration is handling immigration as we speak?
Incredibly fair and just for all parties involved.
Others are saying, look, the Trump administration is being too aggressive about who they're throwing out of the country, that innocent people are getting caught up in the dragnet. What do you think about how it's being handled right now?
I don't think it's being handled right. You know, I'm originally from Chicago and my mom is an immigrant.
This is what happens. It's feast or famine. Right now, nothing. What do you think about the topic of birthright citizenship? Should babies who were born here, regardless of their parent status, be allowed?
Birthright citizenship was, I don't know if it's a constitutional law or it was something implemented a long time ago during a different time period. And it's been turned into appears to be a very big loophole to allow other people just to come over at 9 months pregnant, give birth, and then their child is now a citizen. And now the lawyers and the people will use the court systems to allow the people to stay. That is not fair to the citizens, and that is a perversion of what birthright citizenship should be.
What do you think about?
Well, I'm not going to be like a arrogant individual. I'm not very in tune with the political status of the country. I am Cuban, and I do come from Hispanic, and a lot of immigration is going on. I wouldn't say I'm too for it. I would wish they would give more chances on helping out in the way they go about it.
I feel like what I see on the news, it's not valid, but you know, I don't know if I can really believe everything that's on the media. It's really hard depending on which station you're looking at.
Let's make sure that the ambulance parks right here and forces us to leave. No, yeah, she's got the earphones on. And then I got a biker. I'm not gonna interrupt that. How you doing? Yep, she's doing, yep.
And this is my brother, I disagree with him. Because he said the Native Americans, but you gotta do your homework on who the Native Americans are, bro. Do your homework, look, ChatGPT exists. Yeah. Florida, ask how long black people been in Florida. And then that's what we're not even talking about it, we're talking about immigration. Bro, we from here, gang. We are from here. Even if you look at history books, we've been in America.
Watch this, hold on. Now, if you look at somebody else, a lady who just crossed by, Native American, Asian American, European.
This is coming from somebody who served in the military for 20 years fighting for American citizens, not what some politicians call U.S. persons. Rights belong to the citizens of a country, not to the visitors. Those who come legally or illegally. Of course, those who come illegally commit a crime when they cross the border.
Do you think a baby born on American soil, regardless of their parents' immigration status, should automatically be a citizen.
Yeah, I do. I mean, where's America, everybody from in America? They all were from a different country and we all came over here, so.
That's what I think. Man, I know a couple people who not supposed to be here right now. And I could snitch, but I'm not gonna do it. But what I'm gonna say is, bro, some people not supposed to be here.
I'm like that annoying dinner guest that only talks about politics. May I ask, you said your parents are from Cuba?
Yeah.
And both from Cuba?
Yeah.
And how has that shaped your perspective of what it's like to be you're an American in a country right now that is where you have a White House that is questioning a lot of this stuff?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard because a lot of the times, all right, so basically Cuba is a third world country and they come from a lot of it's just really bad over there. So I just feel like, I don't know, like
You're sympathetic?
Yeah, basically.
I appreciate your feedback. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. You guys are great. Thank you so much. Next on Full Circle Florida, Miami ICE and the Trump White House targets news operations in court. Welcome back into Full Circle Florida. Back here with our panel, Janel Irwin Taylor from Southeast Politics and Dr. Susan MacManus. We just showed your voice piece on how people feel about the Trump administration and deportations and where the opinions lie on that all over the place, as you would expect. But the Miami Herald reporting this week that Miami ICE agents are now trolling the hallways of immigration court. The Herald said that a couple of cases where agents were scooped up two men who were there for an immigration hearing. These men were not hiding. They were there trying to legally work out their immigration status. Anyone who's been following this knows that can get increasingly complicated. Is this what voters wanted, to go after people who are trying to figure out how to live in America legally? Or did most people think that the Trump administration was just going to focus on dangerous criminals and getting them out of the country?
Well, before and after, we see that still a large portion of Americans are about deporting illegals. But most people totally were concurring with, let's get the bad people out first, the criminals. Now the problem is that when you personalize it and somebody you know or some child or whatever is caught up in all this, a different kind of emotion seeps in. And the second thing that's changing is so many law enforcement roles are changing that people are really wondering about the local law enforcement and the degree to which they're entering it and so forth.
Right, how it's being carried out on that local level.
I tell you what it's not affecting. It's not affecting the people, the loudest groups of people, the people on the fringes of the right and the left. The people who were on the right, who were just really, let's crack down on immigration, they are happy about this. The people on the left were already outraged. They're just even more outraged. It's the people in the middle who don't talk, who don't express their opinions loudly. Those are the ones that we really need to look at and how this is affecting them. And I think it does come down to, as Susan said, are they affected somehow personally?
All right, I sort of reluctantly get to this next topic because I don't like to navel gaze and look at the media, and we're part of the media or whatever. But John Oliver recently dissected how President Trump is threatening media outlets and that this is a sign that America could be sliding toward some version of authoritarianism. You've got the lawsuit against CBS. This week, the president of CBS News forced out. How do you hold a president accountable if media companies are in this vulnerable position financially and now legally to challenge a president?
Look, it's not ideal for the journalism profession, and as somebody who has worked in this space my whole career mostly, it's hard, but journalists are a resilient bunch, and they have a very strong will to get information and then to disseminate that to the public. That is their mission in life. And you have people in countries like Russia where the free press is not a thing, and they somehow still manage to make it happen. I don't think you're going to see any reporter worth their weight in salt give up the fight just because it's gotten hard. So not ideal, but it's still going to happen.
Got to fight the fight, yeah. Susan?
Absolutely. The public is saying the press has brought a lot of this on themselves, and of course the whole cover-up of Biden's mental capacity is just adding fuel to the flame.
Well, Well, we've got 30 seconds left. Any final thoughts on this week?
I'm watching the state budget, obviously, as you mentioned earlier. We don't have one yet. I have been in regular communication with budget chiefs in both the House and the Senate. They say that they're getting close, and they hope to start conferencing next week.
No one wants to be in Tallahassee in the summer.
Yep.
All about graduations. Families everywhere. This is a joyous week, and your daughter's one of them.
They've earned it, and thank you for watching us here on Full Circle Florida. We'll see you again here next week.